Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Yes, very good.
Yes, to all the ghosts in the room, to the ghosts in the phone.
You're doing fine, yes.
Father, to the Holy Ghost within you.
And thank you. Good morning.
Cool. Good morning, Father.
Son.
Season 2.
Here's to you, wherever you are.
Yes, here's to us. Here's to y'all. Season 2 in my new home with my Christmas tree.
This is great. It's a great place. Yeah. Spacious and has interesting little features and nooks,
Yeah.
aspects and things.
It's got a kind of style. It's got a little more style than I anticipated for like an apartment complex.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was somehow they got a designer involved.
Yeah.
Snuck in.
Snuck in, yeah.
Yeah, good. And that mirror thing, it's a perfect place for it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and it started as a kind of focal point at the end of a hall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about 72 or so.
That's when you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's due for an upgrade.
You mean like refinishing or something?
Mainly the flowers. The flowers
I see.
are due for an upgrade. And as I look at it, probably polishing would be... I'll do that too. When I
could stand some oil or something.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, a new arrangement. New floral arrangement.
Yeah, I started putting a little elbow grease on the table. You know, the table.
Yeah. The Porter table.
The Porter
Perry.
table. Porter
Perry.
Perry Porter, I think.
Yeah,
that's
fair. Yeah. Built by Grandpa Perry.
Yeah. Yeah, but I've been cleaning it and rubbing harder than usual.
A little extra, like...
Yeah, and because it's so
you.
good. Yeah. You're a good table.
You're a damn good Yeah, tables need to be petted too.
Yeah.
That's true.
And that's, nice wood is good for my soul.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel it. I was experiencing, I think, a similar satisfaction when I got my new dining room table, and I was like, I was so pleased that I have wood polish for work, because I sometimes will polish pianos, like when it's really nice wood, and I was really just enjoying like something satisfying about polishing your own beautiful wood items. There's some deep man in his home.
Right. Yeah. Me here.
Yeah, and the care of it, and it was fun to.
And I just, since you mentioned that, I just realized something that I hadn't before. That part of my, I think, attraction to natural wood is that is artistic and kind of graphic because they're all different.
Yeah.
Sometimes the wood grain pattern is similar, but it's all unique,
Mm-hmm.
and that's true for rocks.
Sure.
For the stuff I collect, they're often beautiful.
Yeah. Just
And,
inherently.
right, and it was just happened to be under the ground somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
I like them.
you like the distinctness of the
I like,
individuality
yes,
of
yes,
pieces.
and then and the colors and patterns and all that visual stuff.
Yeah, that makes me think, I'm sure all the wood items you've had over your life has definitely affected me. Like, just also literally, I've just taken some of your shit.
Oh, yeah, there's that too.
But it is something I love, and I've been really enjoying expanding on that over the years
Yeah,
and in this space, like just continuing to lean into that and
yeah,
being in so many people's homes. That's often what stands out the most to me.
uh-huh.
Are like, because a lot of them are older people, um, so I see all this really just beautiful vintage stuff all just constantly.
I
Just
bet.
this constant
Yeah,
flood of old fine art and
uh-huh.
vintage wood.
Right, right. That's good. Well,
And
yeah,
I love it.
that makes
I
sense.
love it. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a time when I collected rosewood.
Mm.
They were somehow fashionable, and I'd learned later, many years later, that was when the destruction of the rainforest in Brazil was kicking
Like
it
at its
into second gear.
right.
So
I
they
think
were
I
cutting
remember you
down
saying
trees
something about
as
this.
many as they could, as fast as they could. And there was some beautiful Brazilian rosewood
That came out of
that
that
came it came out of that
gung-ho
exploitation.
fucking.
Yeah, because we had a beautiful table, just stunning,
Uh,
and I had a headboard and a desk, and all of which I had to sell at some point.
just in a pinch.
Yes, big pinch, and large pinch. Yes,
Uh,
but I saved this,
mm-hmm.
and I've got a little planter,
Mm-hmm.
and that a little kind of desktop shelf thing, and a letter opener.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Still, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, long time ago.
Like, jumped to as far as memories go. So I want to talk about Christmas, and just start off with, as far as harkening back. I was with a group of people yesterday talking about Christmas and Santa and believing in Santa and whether or not, there was a question of like, would would we keep the Santa story going? Would we tell our kids about Santa? With this new postmodern sentiment of like, how could you do that to your child?
A deliberate lie.
Yeah, you lied. Yeah,
That's a good question.
and yeah, it was it is, yeah, that's an interesting question, and I can get into a little bit of that, but as far as like my answer. But what I wanted to ask was, I had a thought while I was biking earlier, like, just, I don't really, if you can tell me about what that was like for you, and us kids, the Santa story, telling us about Santa, entertaining it over the years, because I don't remember when it stopped. I just
When we
remember,
start talking about Santa.
yeah, I just remember that it was, and it's
And
not anymore. And I know it's,
well, I can confirm that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If you could talk a little bit about that, like what that was like, from a parent's perspective, and, so.
I seem to remember you and or Joe going to see Santa somewhere at a mall or something like that. But it's very vague. I don't think we ever had any images of Santa. I doubt that there was even a Santa ornament. You know, so I don't think we were anti Santa so much as we just didn't say much about him.
It's kind of like you were with religion.
Yeah, right.
There was no bashing of it, but it just wasn't a whole lot. There wasn't
Yeah.
talking about it at all. It just wasn't
No.
part of the
What
we're working on.
Talk about,
Yeah.
right. And I do have a picture of, I think, both of them, Ari and Sylvia, sitting on one with Santa.
The nieces.
Yeah, but I don't know what. Is it real for them? I don't know. Of course, Sylvia's in school, so maybe not by now.
Yeah, I've been.
But I don't know. I'll have to ask him.
Yeah.
And by the way, let's do this sometime with Jai and his family. I mean, not, exactly like this, or not to record, but just I'd like to get you and Joe together.
Convo.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Sure.
Well, I'll talk to
Yeah. Yeah.
Ashley. She'll set it up. Anyway, that's an aside, but
Yeah. So you must have done some though, because it was around. Santa
it was around. It was so unimportant that I don't even remember. And there are a lot saying not having been a father before, there were a lot of new things were happening all the time that I had never experienced before.
Of course.
And some of them I remember.
Yeah. You just kind of keep up as best as you can.
Right.
I imagine.
But the Santa was just not important. Do you? So you don't have a notion of when it happened, when you realized
There was no cataclysmic moment.
Yeah.
Of being like, wow, lying. It's just you were lying.
All right. All this time you're lying to me.
Not that I can remember. Yeah, not that I could remember. It does, as I try to pull out that thread a bit in this moment, I do recall that I think it was released pretty early.
I would think so.
Because I remember. Because the idea of you guys just getting us presents was very early on, like the point. And
Right.
in the focus. And so I think it was pretty early on, and it probably a brief spell of Santa-ness.
But now that we're talking about it, I do remember, I don't know, encouraging you to go to bed on Christmas Eve so that you would be sure to have loot the next day.
Yeah.
And it seems to me I remember leaving something out for Santa, a cookie, but you know, that would have been very, very early. But yeah, we could have done that. That's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there was a question yesterday about whether I would, and a few people were like definitely gonna do it, and found myself just kind
Definitely
of like
gonna tell them about Santa. Gonna go, okay.
yeah, and I'm still finding out, discovering whether I would and how I would go about it, and and the really basic argument against doing it, of course, is like, oh, it's a lie.
Start with.
It's a lie, and it's something that you'll have to like dispel at some point.
Oh, right. Or somebody's gonna dispel it.
Someone will dispel it, and
Right.
why would you do that to your children? Kind of stuff. But on the other hand, something that was coming up and I was thinking about was like kids and adults live on stories, and I'm beginning to become more aware of that than ever. Like,
Why is that?
well, I guess just as huge parts of my narrative of life have like collapsed. Basically, it reveals, oh, there was a story I was telling,
Oh.
and I've been living off of that story, and we live off of the story we tell ourselves, and sometimes it takes the story being completely wiped away for you to realize that that was the spiritual bread you were feeding on. And yeah, and just encountering more deeply, in some ways, more intensely, like what it's like when a big central story like falls away in some way, and you're left with the void. And postmodernism, basically, post-Christianity world, that's it's no way to live, and you can't get out of telling a story.
Right.
There's no way around that, and so you need stories, and part of the prose of Santa is the values, the spirit of him, and the spirit of the Christmas time, like the basic one of Santa bringing you all sorts of gifts and things.
Right, as
like,
a reward for your obedience and good behavior.
Yeah, and of course that gets you know really cheaply mass produced, but underneath that there is the spirit of like, when you're in alignment with
Mm-hmm.
yourself and your own sense of
Mm-hmm.
the good, and you're in alignment with the universe, in harmony with yourself and your world and your family and your community. um, the universe meets you there and showers upon you
Mm-hmm.
and showers gifts and
Right.
blessings. And that's beautiful. That's like, I absolutely want to instill that kind of thing
Mm-hmm.
in my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And um,
So is that does that differ from karma?
um, does that differ then from karma? I mean, they're certainly in the same fam.
Yeah, just that sense
Different
of
takes on the what you put into the
right determines what you get
matrix
out. Yeah.
determines what you get out. Yeah.
Uh,
Um, Same basic
uh-huh.
model. Yeah, yeah. Um, but Christmas specifically is like, it's really, and it's like essence, and in the Santa thing is just like very positive. The blessings, the light,
Uh-huh.
the beautiful presence, and and of course that's one part of the whole thing, which is part of what's cool about Christmas too. It's like it's a million threads that have been woven throughout history,
Right.
and but as far as that, just like to try and articulate the Santa thing, like what I was able to identify was like, the spirit and those values are beautiful, and I love that idea. Um, and and someone said yesterday that that's providence, like in like the Christian
Mm.
sense, and
Mm-hmm.
had known that definition before. The way in which God bestows His blessings upon you in a
Mm-hmm.
real sense, and that's amazing. And but you, when it comes to a kid, and even anyone, you can't. They're not thinking conceptually and
No.
abstractly. And in terms of values, that's a
No.
progressive experience
Yeah.
for
It takes a
all
while.
people throughout all life and maybe eternity.
Mm.
So you need stories to, like, what? Well, you need someone. The notion was that you need a person that to embody that for a kid.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Um, just like in the
So
sense of like the conversations we've had about a father. Like you need someone to embody this part of your psyche,
mm-hmm.
and Santa embodies
I see.
this set of values and this element of the universe, this
Mm-hmm.
benevolent gifting blessing, and
Yeah.
that part of the like godness. and and a
Uh-huh.
kid and a kid does need like someone, or there's just tremendous value at least.
Yeah. So
So that's one pro to wielding that story, and
uh-huh.
it probably just ideally it just takes some planning and
Yeah.
forethought about how
Right.
you go about it. And
Yeah. And I mean, I was thinking about how I might do that if I had to, and
yeah,
it would be like that. The usefulness of a story, and it's kind of fun, doesn't hurt anybody, and was another way that we showed our concern and concern for and responsibility for you. It's another way to show our love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
By letting you experience this. And you can decide what you want to now.
Yeah. Yeah, and
And as a betrayal, it's fairly mild.
yeah, and the betrayal part, yeah, that's more and more I'm like, to see it as a betrayal isn't right, because it's not.
Yeah.
And you have to, it is just, you have to wield it. You have to wield it. You have to, it's one of the other million elements of the school of family or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm imagining, like, yeah, whenever that conversation happens, like the one of Santa isn't real, that conversation is an expansive one, like an enlightening one, in which, like, you talk to your kids about, like, yeah, it was just a story in some ways, but it turns out that's the whole world is this.
Yeah,
It's
the
not,
values are valid regardless.
yeah, it's valid regardless. Yeah, and this is the nature of the world you're in, little child.
Right.
And it'll show up in all sorts of ways and all sorts of people, but this is the nature of just the world itself.
Yeah. So get used to it.
Yeah, and it's still the case. Like, it's still this little game we've been playing.
Yeah.
It's still the case. It's still the case, and
So what are you going to do this year for Christmas? Do you have specific?
I want to have you and Joe and Erica over at some point.
Good. Okay.
And beyond that,
Well,
maybe take mushrooms and sit in front of my tree.
There you go. That would do it.
It's not bad.
Yeah. That would work.
Yeah, that actually sounds dope. When I say that.
There you go. That was a gift. Want a good idea? There you go. So you're not aware of any war on Christmas. I mean, I hear about.
I've heard there's a war on Christmas. I've heard there's a war going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the holidays.
Well, it's the same.
But I think the holidays is fine. That's okay. You know, we all know we're talking about Christmas. We don't have to say it.
Yeah. People don't have an issue with the holidays. People have an issue with Christmas.
Right.
In the same way that they have an issue with Christianity and patriarchy in Western society.
Right.
That's what the war is on.
Yeah, it's a pretty big war.
It's raging. Yeah, there's a war on Christmas. Yeah.
War on democracy. I've heard that talked about too.
Yeah. All sorts of. Yeah. I mean, the Christian thing. Yeah, just in general, like, it's anything having to do with Christianity and Christian hypocrisy and dogma and empty words and
all the good parts. Yeah.
um, yeah, empty Christian phrases and
Yeah.
regurgitation of Christian platitudes and shit. Like, of course, yeah. Um, there's all those, all valid criticisms. But Christmas is tight.
Yeah.
I love it.
Christmas
I love
is
it.
usually fun.
I love it.
In one way or another.
Yeah, and if of course, like, yeah, it gets seized by Walmart and
Sure.
Bezos and stuff, and like
That's
China,
yeah.
and
Right.
and there's the whole thing of meaningless gifts, and yeah, just it's all about the criticism being like it's all about buying things, and yeah, it can definitely it can get away from the holiness of it, the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
But it's still beautiful in essence, like
Yeah.
in
It
terms
means well.
yeah, in terms of gift giving, like I suppose I've had my own kind of Cold War on Christmas. That's interesting. Over the years, in that I do not yeah, I do not run out to get gifts for people.
Oh.
In no way,
I-
shape, or form.
that certainly rings true.
Because of my own, yeah, I suppose I've had my own sort of Cold War of like, yeah, I don't want to do it out of obligation.
Right.
That's not real. But
Yeah.
and that's not that doesn't mean gifts aren't beautiful, and it doesn't mean meditating on looking within, which I think is a bigger spirit of Christmas that maybe we can get into. Meditating on those who are meaningful to you and the relationships that are important to you, in the spirit of how can I like honor that and honor this person is beautiful. That's amazing. That's like, yeah, it's I definitely want to grow that more in my life, and want to mature that relationship to gift giving. It's like, yeah, it shouldn't be just out of obligation, but it's important to meditate and commune with those people that matter to you and
Right.
the people that you love, and this is just this awesome tradition seasonally to do so. And
sometimes I tell myself, or think about it in terms of, I care so much about you that I'm gonna go along with this trivial societal convention, just so there's no doubt. Because I know that I could have done everything else on the money, but if I don't do this, it kind of says publicly or semi-publicly that I don't even want to give you a present.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Okay.
So just so it won't even be an issue. We won't even have to talk about that.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. It's tricky because it's a
Yeah,
whole.
it is tricky.
It's a statement to not.
To do no matter what happens, right?
And you'd have to like explain it.
That's right. It's way simpler.
Get you some socks.
Right.
And get
It'll be fine.
get you
It's
a
okay.
Starbucks gift card. Which I wouldn't.
Right.
I'll take anybody who wants to hit me up with that. I'm totally good on that.
Well.
Yeah, as far as so, it is a societal convention. It's Christmas time. Yeah, we're back.
Right.
And the stores open up like clockwork after Thanksgiving to begin, and like my vibe this year is like just recognizing how that is the surface snow powder layer, fake snow powder layer, on top of what is like ancient and deep, this tradition and this time and all the rituals involved with it. Like these threads are like, of course they're pagan,
Sure.
they're Christian, like, and the million things I don't know about. Like, who knows, something I've been enjoying just entertaining, like, who knows how far back the threads involved with all the little rituals go.
Right. Pretty far.
It could be the furthest.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because it's something fundamental of like, it's this like reckoning with winter, and the recurring winter that's been happening since the earth
Forever.
settled down.
Right.
And settled its climate roughly, like,
Yeah.
and humans have been having to deal with that fact,
Mm-hmm. All the time. I guess less so in the southern hemisphere. I mean, on Tahiti, they didn't really make much difference.
Oh, that's true.
But for Westerners, Western civilization,
The
northern,
the lighter skinned.
makes a big difference.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Well,
I didn't really think of that, but it is.
Yeah, because
Yeah, as far as that part of it, the winterness of it. Yeah.
and I think the main things people have to contend with are consistent across cultures. I mean, just food and shelter and clean water and stuff like that, just to keep things going. But much of it is somehow culturally colored. Culturally, it's expressed in different ways, and then what really impresses me, I guess, is that, and which helps me at least imagine what it was like 10,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because finally, the sun stops going away so soon. It's just it's getting darker earlier and earlier and earlier. Well, what's going to happen? Will it keep doing that?
Yeah, yes, I guess we had
What is this? But it stopped. Now it's starting to say.
Mm-hmm.
We got through another year,
Mm-hmm.
you know? It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Let's have a party.
Yeah, let's have a party. Let's have a party.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're here again.
That's a momentous, kind of thing. Not so much for us, because we got, lights and don't matter when the sun goes down.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's part of. Well, I like that idea that it does connect you to like ancestors.
Right,
And
fundamental,
I
whatever.
feel that. Yeah, yeah, and I think, yeah, in the developed world, we're not as confronted with that. But even still, you're confronted with the fact of winter, and
Yeah.
it's colder, and at least in certain climates, clearly.
And your headlights come on automatically earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, humans have been having to deal with winter and just the fact of when things are more barren.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe that's that would be a through line, except in like a tropical
Sure.
jungle or something.
Sure.
But when things are just cyclically more stark and
Mm-hmm.
and
And cold, too.
and cold, yeah, and
Yeah.
and and I go just psychologically with that, like, what's so I love the tradition of it more than ever, and discovering a love for it, because like winter, yeah, is eternal, like in some sense, like
Sure.
eternally returning in this year, but also like just in a month, in a day. There are points where the meaning disappears, and you're left with like just the raw blankness of the moment, or
Yeah, if you're lucky. It's blank.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and then you'll do something with it, and but it's an eternally recurring kind of reality at
Mm-hmm.
in a holographic way. It's happening within, and I think women know it more intimately, just physically, just with the menstrual cycle. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's just literally periods of emotionally feeling more barren, and physiologically, hormonally, and literally being more barren in terms of
Right.
fertility, and it's just something we have to deal with in being human, and
Uh-huh.
and Christmas and the holidays, what I see is it's just like humans trying to deal. It's this beautiful like momentum of ritual that's trying to that is accounting for it and
Mm-hmm.
celebrating it.
Mm-hmm. So do men have a harder time? No, scratch that. So I think men have a harder time in some ways with that, because women know things we don't know. Just
Yeah,
like,
the
and we know
secrets of
things they
women.
don't know.
The secrets of women.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different set of receptors or something. I don't know. I don't have a good metaphor.
Yeah, as far as from what I could tell,
Yeah,
it's very
just like the
there's a
dogs,
distinct realm that is just woman and
right?
man, just because of your body, and
Well, yeah, a little, because of a few molecules here and there can make all the difference.
Sure, but even right, and that's usually this is a whole nother. I don't know how deep I want to go in this, but like, so just thinking you saying a few little molecules make all the difference. That's often the thing with like chromosomes, like it's just
Mm-hmm.
one. But I'm just seeing like a bit of the like distortion in just saying like, oh, it's just one chromosome, and it's like, well, when you look, you're looking at that level of reality at the
Right.
genetic level. It's one chromosome, um, but one chromosome in the multidimensional system, complex system of systems that is a body means 50 million things.
Right, makes a
and,
huge difference.
and
Right.
fractals out to mean like an
Exactly.
entire different system in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just seeing like how that's not the right level of analysis, though it's a valid one, but it's a part of like, yeah, humans fucking, yeah, it's crazy
Yeah, you
fucking
wouldn't.
system of systems,
Yeah,
symphony of symphonies.
yeah. Very interesting. Mm.
But anyway, the fact of, just to finish that thought a bit or carry it forward more, maybe finish it, winter and like, yeah, light in the winter, creating light in the winter, um,
Yeah.
kind of worshiping light in the winter, and that's part of what makes light so beautiful, is like, you know, the surrounding darkness,
Right.
and I love that.
Yeah,
I love it.
we like light.
Yeah, 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 and in terms of, yeah, response to the winter, um,
And that's got to be fundamental.
yeah, it's pretty good. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so much of winter is about like the interior, the interiority of things.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause yeah, post harvest, um, you're not planting anything. You're also not harvesting anything. You ain't picking anything off the tree. You're
No.
probably spending less time outside. You're probably seeing people less.
Sure.
um, it's darker, and just the outside world, which has been like the prevailing story, to put it in that terms,
It
is,
doesn't matter anymore. It's not there.
it's not, yeah, you can't
Yeah.
depend on it for your like inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Though I think winter is inspiring in its own way. And
Yeah.
so like in terms of like abundance, I've been just thinking like, yeah, it's stark, it's barren, there's, the story's gone, the harvest is gone. It's and when value outside, is no longer there in that dramatic
Mm-hmm.
display, it forces you to look within, and literally go inside your home. Because it's cold. You go, when it's cold outside, you go
Yeah.
inside and you look, you go within yourself.
Yeah.
And
Some people don't like that though.
yeah, and I think that's a part of why people get, why the holidays and the winter is hard.
Gets mixed reviews. Yeah.
Yeah, because it is the winter. It is the seasonal winter of the soul, and yeah, it's not about it being cozy.
Right.
Exactly. Or like, it partially is, of course, because fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I have to edit
Yeah.
that statement.
You have to.
But it comes with the territory. Like,
Yeah.
this is happening all the time. It's essential that you. It's like part of the grace of being, like teaching Earth, teaching us how to be and exist. Like, you have to cyclically look within for value and your heart and your food. You can't depend on the outside
No.
entirely. You have to, like, in a ritual fashion, come back, look within, and discover the inner food, the inner luminosity that exists within you. And that's the same thing to me of bringing in a tree into your home, something living, and lighting it up. It's what you do within yourself in the winter. And that process of meditation, like an engagement with love and with that spirit of providence, like, and warmth and family, like, that meditation just bubbles over and into gifts. It bubbles out into the physical world in the form of beautiful ornaments, beautiful gifts, beautiful sparkles. Like, it makes the world even more sparkly because of the way that you've brewed.
Because of where it comes from, this place in you that.
Yeah, and the like act of it, like the willingness to go within and turn in.
Right.
And become pregnant with what? Spirit or something. Your own spirit. Which maybe that's why Santa's fat.
Right. He has a good time. That's all he does. He just has a good time. He's got elves making stuff. Yeah. He's in good shape. So that, so all that comes from, or maybe requires, to get that space, it requires being here. I'm trying to reconcile that with be here now kinds of things, you know.
Sure.
And it sounds a lot, I mean, so far, it's a little like gratitude in a way. And I don't think it probably could be done constantly, but to keep returning to how good this is right here, right now.
Yeah, and a certain just thankfulness for what you have.
Right.
Because when there's like less, maybe surplus out in the world, it makes you more aware of what you got.
What's here now,
and that can be challenging because then you're like, damn, I ain't got much. But you do have some, and yeah, and in that sense, like, that seems like just a good idea in that process. Like, you're kind of forced to reckon with what you got,
right,
including your family,
whatever that is,
and from there, it's a matter of how you respond.
Right.
And there's no way out of, like, you can evade it, I suppose. People do all the time, but we do get this
response.
It's another response, yeah. And the ritual is like to like respond with like light and love and warmth and family and gratitude. That's the ritual that's been going on. That's like, it's like, what do you do when we're here? When you're like, when you have to think about your family or lack thereof, or like, what do you do? And it's one, I think it's a great It's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to, or have been looking forward to this holiday season.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have high hopes.
The Jesus thing is good too.
Oh yeah, there's always
They
the
are
Jesus
truer
thing.
words of it. I'm just seeing this ornament that I was gifted, and I didn't quite realize
This
it's a
one?
whole nativity
Oh,
on the way to the Big Bang of
Okay.
Jesus coming through, coming in, coming out, popping out.
oh, I see. So the three wise men, and it must be Joseph and Mary, huh? Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
can see the baby bump.
they're
Okay.
on the way.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's like this beautiful navy blue with gold.
Yeah, nicely done.
Paint. Yeah, it's really good.
Did you cut these out?
No, they were also a gift
Okay.
from the same wonderful person. Yeah, the Jesus thing is great. And it's easy. It's been easy for me to like be posy about Christian stuff because didn't grow up with it, so didn't have like the same need to like get away. Just been on the outside the whole time. But the Jesus thing, yeah, like it's the hopeful idea of like Jesus being born on Christmas and stuff, like the savior of mankind, like the light of the world.
Yeah.
Is born in the darkest, deepest, darkest time of the year. And just symbolically, that's like excellent news. Like, for
Sure.
everybody, in your deepest, darkest times, like, the savior of your life can be born.
All right.
It's a hell of an idea.
Right.
and thank goodness.
Truly.
Yeah, all the surface, bullshit aside, like that spirit, I think it's beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, I love the idea of ornaments, like discovering all of this really. I knew like
Cool.
the ornaments being like just what you've collected for your whole life,
Oh.
and they have this whole lineage and tale behind them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, beauty in their meaning, and in addition their physical beauty, and adorning the tree then becomes this really like kind of this ritual act. Like each one has this different
Each one means
significance.
something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're getting downright domestic.
Hell yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I might have said this, but yeah, I was aware of from the moment I wanted to get a tree, I was aware of like it became the tradition of it became uh, conscious. Like
Oh.
as I was getting a saw, buying a saw, I was like, this is what I will use every year
Right.
until it breaks or I
Yeah.
lose it or something.
Yeah, it'll be a long time.
Yeah, like I was entering, like the whole process of getting the tree and all the things was like, I was aware of entering into a ritual and like a repeated place.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just really cool. It's one of the things about the holidays that I'm discovering over this last year. Like, part of what's beautiful is it's a place you enter. It like in that contained in the holiday is like every past occurrence and every future occurrence, and it's this timeless place in some way that you ritually cultivate and get into. And I imagine you guys celebrated Christmas when you were a kid.
Oh yeah. And I have a picture somewhere. Somewhere in my photos of me on a rocking horse. I think it was. Yeah,
I think I've seen that,
this,
yeah.
yeah, black and white
Yeah.
in front of the Christmas tree.
You should send that to me.
I will. Yeah, Christmas was a big deal. I would. I think I once, left something out for Santa. Cocoa or I don't know, cookies or something. And I'm sure I told Santa what I wanted, at the downtown somewhere. But I learned, pretty early. Didn't take long for me to
You were a smart
know
kid.
what was going on.
Yeah, critically minded kid.
Right.
Was that do you remember much about that? Was that like is it jarring at all?
I don't think so. And it just
You're
in
just like,
terms
all
of,
right.
just in
there,
terms
okay.
of childhood illusions and delusions. I remember, it must have been a friend of my mother's, I suppose, saying something about the tooth fairy. And I don't know, they must have asked me. I don't remember the context, but, and this is just what I'm telling you is I'm recounting a story that my mother used to tell.
Okay.
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 But at some point I said, they said something about the tooth fairy, and I said something about an overweight fairy. Because I knew it was my mother. And I knew that fairies didn't look like her. Most of the time.
Damn.
Yeah. So I don't think it was easy to put something over on little Tony.
Damn.
Yeah,
Was that like meant as a joke or like
no, that was just
you were just observing?
I was observing.
All those eggs.
Yeah, yeah, it was just early signs of a smart ass. So that was.
By nature.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little about black folk?
Oh.
We'll probably try and
I
read it in
don't
with
really want to
Christmas.
talk. I don't want to talk about black folks. I will talk about Negroes though.
Oh, okay.
And I have nothing to say about African Americans.
Okay. We're making a distinction
Yeah.
between Negroes and African Americans.
Yeah, it's a little like Boomers and Gen X and
Okay.
Gen Z, or
Okay.
whatever that sequence is.
Okay. So are you gonna lay out some definitions or criteria?
I grew up with Negroes. Negroes are older people,
They're older. Okay.
generally. Yeah.
Are they the boomers of
Um,
African Americans?
yeah, definitely the Boomers. The
Okay.
Boomers are Negroes. They grew up as Negroes anyway. They may have converted sometime, during their life
Okay.
to black or African American or
Okay. Okay.
But I'm a Negro,
Okay.
and because I grew up as a Negro, I was a little colored boy. I lived in a colored neighborhood, and
Chicago.
in Chicago,
Southside?
South Side, far South Side at that time, 91st Street, and
You're close to Quincy Jones.
that was fine. Yeah, and not far from Mahalia Jackson. And so that's what it was. That's what, south side of Chicago. And then, I'm not sure when, I think I turned black in the late 60s.
From Negro.
From Negro, right.
Okay. I'm still like
I'm just
on the
guessing.
edge of my seat about what that transformation means.
Yeah, the only difference was the terminology, actually. And black was a single syllable with, I've forgotten what you called that consonant at the end, so it was a more aggressive term, which, felt pretty good in my mid-20s.
As far as how you self-identified.
Right.
It was more affirmative, more empowered.
Right. I guess, yeah.
Kind of identity.
And then I tried on African American, which came out of nowhere in '88.
It just appeared on the scene.
Yeah, when Jesse Jackson made it up when he was running for president.
Okay.
And
Right, we just take that for granted now.
yeah, I know, but that's where it came from.
Jesse Jackson one day. Was like,
He invented it. He was a
I had a
wordsmith,
yeah, and he was on the Black Empowerment.
Yeah, and
Mission.
it hadn't been for years, so that was, but African American just doesn't. I've never been to Africa. My
Right.
parents were never in Africa. That association just seems artificial, as far as I'm concerned. I don't, because culturally, all that is as foreign to me as it is to anybody else. you know. So, and then, so I was black for a while in the 70s, I guess. But I'm a Negro again. I like it. It's
Okay.
it's comfortable.
Come full circle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't, that people, some people think of it as pejorative. It's just silly, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm.
And so that's how I identify. Although it's not on the applications and things anymore.
Yeah, you can't bubble that one.
I can't be a Negro.
Yeah.
A couple of times they had an other that I could fill in. There's
And
no
then
Negro
would you
box.
write in Negro?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's African American. I mean, I understand why you would want to do that, but I don't think the extra syllable will really add anything. And as far as I can tell, socially and economically and whatnot, Negroes made way more progress than black people have, and more than African Americans. And just in
That's a hot
terms of
take.
economic numbers, they were much better in the 60s than they are now. And at this point, I've become, for instance, kind of anti-affirmative action. I think that's not a good idea. It's yeah, I don't think it really accomplishes anything. Other than satisfy a handful of people, but just in terms of the group of us as a whole, I don't think that's really helped any. It's given a few people a break who wouldn't have gotten one otherwise, yeah.
Sure.
But it's a gimme. Gimmes are always bad.
Yeah, and it
Much
doesn't.
better to learn how to do it yourself. I mean, if nothing else, or not maybe not if nothing else, but an indicator is people born out of wedlock. And
In terms of, you're talking about
there
progress.
were there are way more now. It's like 70% of black girls, women who give birth are attached to anybody.
Yeah,
And
it
we're not
sounds like.
talking about just shacking up, or they're not attached. Period.
Yeah, and it's like a massive,
that's-
massive issue that's
It's
just
major.
rampant. Yeah.
My students rarely knew who their father was. Every now and then, and I've had maybe a half dozen, not even that many, who grew up with a father. It was extremely rare.
Yeah.
If they knew who he was, they were lucky. And I've heard people talk about growing up in a family and doing things with their father and stuff, and later found out that they were just making the most of it because it was just somebody that they saw now and then, which was unusual, So anyway, that's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, but it's in this thread you brought it up because as like a indication of you're kind of correlating the state of Black America, for lack of a better phrase, Black America with how Black people have identified themselves.
Right.
And there was like an era of Negro, there was the era of Black, and then there was the era of African American.
Yeah.
And now it's a wider thing with like people of color.
I'm not sure. Yeah. Right. as opposed to colored people. A friend of mine, a friend of mine, I happened to say something about colored people, and she.
You didn't say people of color. You said colored people.
And she said, why do you say that?
You said specifically colored people.
Yes.
And you said it in front of her, who's a colored woman.
She's of color. See, she's not colored, and she would resent being called colored, probably. But yeah,
she ain't. Yeah,
she's not. But she's not a Negro. She's
Northern
just,
Irish.
No,
she ain't Welsh.
No. Yeah. But these days, she would be called a woman of color.
Because there's some
Because that's
sepia.
It's a bigger. It includes Asians.
It's not white people.
It's just not white people. Yeah. Or American Indians.
Yep. It's not British people.
Right.
That's all it means.
Pretty much. Yeah.
It's just So you.
So anyway, Negroes did better than black people did.
Okay, and are you drawing some causation, or just pointing out correlation? It's a toughie.
I think part of it was the attitude that black people needed help, not just fair treatment, which is all the civil rights thing was about. Just
equal opportunity.
Equal opportunity.
Equity.
That's all. As opposed to
equal
doing
outcome.
something extra. Yeah, doing something extra because these people are bad off, because it just says you can't help yourself. Makes you dependent.
And so in the Negro era, it was just it was rougher in some sense.
Oh, in several senses, but
in many senses. It was just absolutely rougher. But you're saying that.
But they were improving all the time.
Yeah, there was this really aggressive movement on everybody's front of just proving competence, because
exactly,
because it was such a situation where you had to be just so much better in order to even get people to listen to you,
right?
Which resulted in holy shit, now you're the best.
Right.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, how did that happen? And so that.
And so you're equating a bit of the language change, if I'm correct, with the affirmative, the attitude that birthed affirmative action.
That's probably part of it, but I think it's more the change in nomenclature seems to be part of what I've heard called a euphemism treadmill, where a term, maybe for a group, or a term of one sort or other, is generally used pejoratively, or has come to be used pejoratively. And so if we change the name for this thing or this group, the perception of them will change and they'll be treated better. That's obviously an oversimplification, but one example, this was maybe only 40 years ago. I used to, I had a connection to a place that was a kind of a group home for they may have been then called developmentally disabled people.
Okay.
At one time they would have been called retarded. And at this time, the people who cared the most for them and who worked with them every day and were professionals in this field referred to them among themselves as Tardos. It was not at all defamatory. They loved them.
Yeah.
It didn't mean anything bad. It was just a shorthand for these people that they worked with.
And summed up the situation
And summed up
their
everything.
endearment.
Right.
In one word,
Right.
one little slang.
Exactly. Nobody ever said, they didn't talk about goddamn Tardos. That wasn't.
Well, I'm sure
that
plenty of
wasn't
that
it.
happened too. But it
Anyway,
happens.
so and from retarded to developmentally disabled to differently abled, I've even heard,
Yeah.
and other terms like that.
Yeah.
I've heard that described as an example of the euphemism treadmill, where you change the name of something in hopes that people will feel differently about it.
Yeah.
If you just call it something different.
It's the malleability of language, Humpty Dumpty postmodernism.
It's very post. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Thinking that if you call it something different, it'll actually be different.
yeah.
One thing I see.
Which there's truth to that, but keep going.
But it doesn't change the original situation at all necessarily. It just people don't take it as seriously sometimes. So anyway, a guy who had been convicted of a crime in a court of law and placed in a facility was a convict. And once he got out, he was an ex-convict, sometimes called an ex-con. That was, as far as I can tell, that was descriptive as much as anything else.
Just
It
some
was just a way to,
timeline marker.
right. And it was a way to classify people, but everything, half of what we do is trying to,
Figure out
put
what in
people
the
in
hell
the
am
box.
I?
Yeah, right.
What in the hell am I?
So, yeah, and then, being with the people I hang out with, it becomes, at some point it became returned citizen, returned to society. And then, or most recently I've heard, oh gosh, it's not returned citizen. It's formerly incarcerated person. And see, for me, it takes longer to say, but it's not long enough for the listener to change their mind.
Yeah, like I got it.
Yeah.
You was in prison.
Right, exactly.
You ain't anymore.
Right, and that's not to say anything about whether they should have been there or if that institution exist or anything. And that's another example of this euphemism treadmill that happens in a lot of different ways. People we call it something else in hopes that something good will happen. And I think it's who
That reality will change.
Right.
That the circumstances will change.
Right. And as far as I can tell, it's a waste of time. And it's not going to change anything.
Well, what's coming to mind is that, to use that example of ex-con and the progress to like return citizen and like that. What? Language can be changed, identifications can be changed in a way that's real, but the but language and the story we're telling uh, is a part of nature, and it's a part of you, and we are nature, and things change over time, and they have to change in a way that is like ideally biologically cohesive, which most of the time nature is conservative. So you have to conserve some of the original meaning, and it can transform, but the original meaning has to be carried forward progressively. And part of what we're seeing in the shock of it is like people are just jumping quantum leaps to some other fucking thing with all this natural process of moving the way there in a way that makes sense and is respectful of reality as it is now.
So that system is subverted in some way by...
Subverted, and people are all about that.
Okay.
Subverting and...
right.
And,
shortcuts, yeah.
And... But yeah, the language and stories we tell, and I'm thinking about it in my own world, like changing beliefs about yourself. Like, that's a process. It's a plant you have to grow over time. You don't just jump to like I believe in myself and I'm worthy and loved at times. You grow that shit.
Yeah.
You know, like that takes time, and you gotta you can't like you can't lie to yourself. You have to progressively walk yourself towards that reality in a way that's convincing. Otherwise, it won't take.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same sort of thing. Like you can. Who knows how much we can like change reality with our language.
I gotta take a leak. I can't wait any longer.
Okay. So I was saying,
What?
That
Personal change being...
Yeah, that language is powerful, and that we can actually change things with our language, but changing them in any real way requires a process that is more biological and natural. Like there are certain laws you have to contend with in terms of just like time, and you have to like changing beliefs about yourself takes time. And you have to work incrementally in a way that's like just a little beyond what you're used to thinking, and just a little more. You push the envelope, watch it bend. Push the envelope, watch it bend. And that is done fundamentally by the individual, which maybe to try and tie it back, like to try and change the identity of a whole group of people is not exactly the way to go. You don't change a group of people's minds. You can inspire experience within individuals.
Right.
And so when it comes to Black people, to Negroes, to African Americans, try and bring this back. I can, you say, a threat, pick up on the affirmative action thing, like, yeah, I don't think, like, I don't think that's the way to go either, in any fundamental long-term sense. I don't think maybe affirmative action happens like in specific moments or cases or something. Which I think that's what in affirmative action, not like the thing, but affirmative action as a phenomenon. That's what it is.
Right.
Is specific.
Right.
Cases.
Yeah.
With this moment, this person, this place, and you don't get rid of barriers with affirmative action.
Right.
Because those barriers are psychological.
Right, more than anything else.
And you don't change people's minds by... that's not how you change someone's mind who's resistant to black people.
Right.
In fact, we're probably seeing the opposite. You make them even more frustrated.
This is more reason, yeah.
Yeah, like, well, and that's not how you. Yeah, that's not how you change someone's mind. You do it in the Daryl Davis way, who befriended some huge and continues to do so number of Ku Klux Klan members.
Oh yes,
who
that's
all,
where I heard his name. Yeah.
In the process of getting to know him, left the Ku Klux Klan and completely renounced their old life, not through affirmative action, through getting to know this guy,
enlightenment,
and his willingness to talk with them and just talk straight and befriend them even, and that's how you change someone's mind. It's like face to face,
right,
conversation.
Yeah, the rest is just grants, you know. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm a Negro. I'm gonna stay a Negro, I think.
So
somebody's got to do it.
So for you, it's a little bit of like, this is kind of like a punk rock thing. Like you're claiming that word.
Yeah.
Like some people would say decolonized Negro.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. That's not what you said. That's not. Yeah. Someone could.
Yeah.
But you're claiming that word for yourself. Because the other ones sound like they kind of reek of what you've seen as seeing black people as like helpless and
right, and needy and kind of whiny.
And in your experience, you're seeing it's not helping.
It's not at all helpful, and it's.
It's been
I
rough.
don't like it. It's not, it's unfamiliar in a way. Because that's not how I was raised. That's not what was going on now.
Yeah.
And more recent attitudes don't seem to have helped anybody, and overall. So, but mostly because, not mostly, and I also think just using colors as determinants is kind of goofy too. Because that's not really what we're talking about. The colors are a kind of telltale, or we assume that they are.
Yeah,
but it doesn't tell you what anybody's really like.
No.
No.
And at some point, there is that kind of sci-fi fantasy of like they'll kind of become obsolete because we'll just be caramel
I
for
know
the
that's.
entire planet.
I think that's a given.
Yeah, yeah. And then we'll be dealing with aliens, and then we'll have to. Hopefully, we
Yeah.
have developed some uh, maturity about other.
Yeah.
But before that,
Right. Maturity.
so don't
Yeah,
freak
that's
out.
what it is.
Something I love about lights on a Christmas tree, and just in terms of like justifying doing so, is that when you light it up like this and you dress it up, it in the same way that like makeup in its ideal form accentuates and reveals a woman's beauty
Mm-hmm.
and natural features. I think it's the same thing with lights and ornaments.
Oh.
It highlights the beauty of the spiral staircase that is a tree,
Mm-hmm.
that is a pine tree, and in this really glorious way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just appreciating. Yeah, it makes me look even more deeply at it, and yeah, just highlights its curves,
Mm-hmm.
its natural beauty.
Right. And I especially like this one because it's airy. You know.
I think it's called a silver tip.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Cool. I think that'll probably do.
Yeah.
Unless you have any last words.
Merry Christmas. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. I suppose we could have talked about Kwanzaa. That's like the through line.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm gonna.
I've never read. Do you still have a copy of?
Oh yeah.
Can I
Sure.
have one?
Mm-hmm.
It's been coming up because when I tell people, I recite the story of my name constantly, and partially I wonder what the story of my name is. If I even actually know it, but what I've been saying is that it came from an African baby names book, right?
Yeah.
Roughly.
Well, we have African names. Yeah.
And that you guys were deep in Afro culture because Kwanzaa
Right.
set. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, because well, I had researched it, I guess, a year before or something, but it had just come out in October, November of '91, and I had read a lot, or as much as there was, on Kwanzaa back then, and so had your mother.
That was still pretty new. Right?
Well, the first one was in '66, I think.
Okay.
But it was always, very small, very local, and didn't amount to much, and then until the, I don't know, late '80s, I guess. But we were fairly black at that, in those days, and I had been, since the book was new.
Fairly black.
Yeah, just conscious.
Oh,
Negro conscious.
you're in your black era.
Right.
Yeah, which is like this extra level of.
Yeah, extra.
Like
right. And
affirmatively black.
Right. And I had been doing research.
Forthrightly.
Yes.
Forthrightly black.
Yes.
There we go.
And I had been doing research for. I was going to do another book, the history of Africans in America, but I had been doing interviews on local TV and radio about the book and about Kwanzaa in particular, because it was an up and coming, it was starting to get some press. So we were very conscious, and we did it. Lighted the Canara and all that, and every night on at least 91 and 92. And poor Jai, had to he got the brunt of it because he was the only one who could talk, and at some point he had to, I think, say the good stuff he'd done that year or something, and it was kind of silly. Yeah, so we were steeped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steeped in Afro.
Afro, yeah.
Afro life.
Yeah.
Afro life. And it starts after Christmas, right?
26th. The 26th through New Year's Day.
Is that
New
like...
Year's Day is the last.
Is that like a fuck you?
You could call it that. You could call it that. It was done, definitely, and everything about it was very deliberate and planned and carefully worded and all that.
In response to,
or as an expression of how people were feeling in
the
the mid-60s.
The Anglo world, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And it, and of course it starts the day after, so it's not part of that.
Right, yeah. And nope, it's its own fucking thing.
Yeah. No overlap here.
Yeah. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah. And when it was done, by intelligent, well-meaning people.
For sure.
And clearly is directed at or designed for people who need cheering up, who need to be reminded of some upright kinds of principles, and reminded to work together.
And that sounds like it's something cool
like
too. I'm remembering, each day is a certain principle.
Right.
And that is really cool, and that's one of the benefits of just generating a holiday like that in the modern era, because people don't know what the fuck Christmas is about.
Right, it's long gone, yeah.
Yeah, the 12 days of Christmas, we don't understand shit about that.
No.
So it's a lot of, postmodern value of articulate a new set of principles, and then probably find how they match up with ancient traditions.
Yeah, and of course the idea is for those principles to guide you in the coming year.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the hitch.
Yeah, that's what's supposed to be the case with Christmas and all holidays.
Right.
Is you meditate on it, you cast this spell, and then you carry that spirit of what you did in winter into all winters that happen throughout the year. And that ritual of light.
This will help you,
and articulation of principles in that way of the 9 days?
7.
7 of Kwanzaa?
Yeah.
7 days of Kwanzaa. Yeah. That's something to be carried until the next time. And then you meditate again deeply on it and bring it into the next year.
Yeah.
That's great.
No, and we only did it
it's
2 or 3 years. I'd say 3 tops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. It's each day, and I'm sure there's something like that with Hanukkah.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Specific to each day, and probably it's family house rules too. But I really like that sense of each day is something specific that you and your
You
family
give your attention to.
you give your attention to, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that they're like core life values.
Right.
You're like meditating on like the architecture of your values,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of fun, like to think of. That's what's beautiful about the menorah and the Kanara.
Oh,
did you
right.
say? Like it is physically a kind of architecture,
Mm-hmm.
and same with a tree. It's the same sort of idea as like you're looking at something that's there's a structural thing to it, and a tree is more overtly hierarchical. But but I guess a menorah is too. There's a center one.
Well,
Right?
yes, but I'm not all that familiar with menorah, frankly.
Yeah.
That might be the one with 9, but for Kwanzaa, they're all on the same level, though.
Mm.
So there's at least no implied hierarchy.
Yeah. Well. It's funny to. Yeah. Yeah. But I love that. I love that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you meditate on the. You're like in the home, and you're also meditating on the house,
Mm-hmm.
your spiritual house,
Right.
and you're visiting each corner of it
Right.
with each candle
Right.
and or each ornament, and
Right.
you're visiting each spiritual value that you want in your life.
And of course, I guess that's what church ought to be about. People
Yep.
remind
Yeah, you remind yourself
yeah.
of. Remind yourself and also ask the question again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which I'm likening to like that rediscovering, like you know what they are, but there's also an element of like you ask the question again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's part of like confronting the winter void, like you don't know, and so you ask.
Right.
And that's part of the spell I've been thinking of dressing a tree each year, where how you do it is different every time.
Oh.
Which ornaments you do is different every time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this
Mm-hmm.
creative response to the questions you're asking and what you're meditating on and what the house is like. And Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas. Yes. Very good.
Yes, to
Very
all the
good.
ghosts in the room, to the
Right.
ghosts
Yeah.
in the phone,
You're doing fine. Yes.
Father, to the Holy
Yes.
Ghost within you.
And thank you.
To the Holy Ghost within this tree.
Yeah. Thanks, Tree.
To the Holy Ghost.
Mm-hmm.